Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Eugene and this channel is dedicated to teaching of programming and software development. In the previous lessons, we learned how to work with different data types, including strings. In this lesson, we are going to get a better understanding of how to work with the string data type in C#. First, let's make sure that we remember what a string is and let's walk over some basics. A string is simply a sequence of characters, while every character is encoded in the UTF-16 encoding, which means we can store many different symbols from different languages. As you can see in the example, the value of a string is written in double quotes. This is in contrast to characters that use single quotes. One important characteristic of a string is that strings are immutable, which means that a string can't be changed. When we make any change in a string, a new string is created. As you can see in the example, when we concatenate another string to str, instead of changing str, a new string is created and assigned to the same variable str. Now, consider that you create a string that is built of many parts. For example, the string that you see now. This approach of building strings has a few problems. First, as a consequence of the string's immutability, every concatenation creates a new string in memory. And this affects the performance of the program because allocating a new string takes both time and space in memory. Second, building strings this way is both inconvenient to write because you need to pay attention to many details, and it becomes not readable when building strings of many parts this way. A much better way to construct strings is to use string interpolation. String interpolation is a way to create strings by embedding variables or expressions directly inside the string. The second example you see is using string interpolation. And you can immediately see that the string is written in a more natural way. As you can see, an interpolated string starts with a $sign. Inside the string, we have curly braces, which are placeholders. Inside the curly braces, we can write any variable or expression. Notice that we don't have to write only a single variable inside the curly braces. It can be any expression, for example, some calculation. When we run this command, C# will evaluate the expressions inside the curly braces and build the final string by replacing the placeholders with their values. Now, string interpolation has a few benefits over string concatenation. First, interpolation is more readable, as you've seen in the example. Second, since both string concatenation and numbers addition uses the same plus sign, we should always pay attention to which addition has to be done first. So, string interpolation avoids mistakes. Also, string interpolation is more efficient than concatenation because C# compiles interpolated strings into optimized code without creating multiple strings. When you write a string in your code, the compiler must be able to clearly understand two things. First, where the string starts and ends, and second, which characters inside the string are literal characters and which are special characters. Special characters are characters that have a reserved meaning in programming or in strings and can't be used in the same way as normal text. For example, consider that we want to use double quotes inside a string that we print to the console. Since double quotes mark the start and end of a string, the compiler will think that the string ends at that quote, which is incorrect. To let the compiler know that those double quotes should be part of the string, we have to escape them using the \. sign. Here are a few examples of some special characters that need escaping. For example, the \n sequence adds a new line inside the string. When we have many escaped characters, we can use something called verbatim strings. A verbatim string is a string that tells C# to take the text exactly as it is written. It is created by adding an @ sign before the string, and all characters, except for double quotes, will be escaped. Double quotes still need to be escaped, but this time they are escaped by adding another double quote. An important note about verbatim strings is that not only we don't need to escape them, but they allow us to write multi-line strings a little easier. The idea of verbatim string is that you get exactly what you write without the need to escape almost anything. Notice that a verbatim string can be used with interpolation. You can add both the @ and the $sign before the string. String is not a primitive data type like int or bool, and it has many built-in operations that we can use. Let's see just a few here, and we'll see more in the practical part of this lesson. As you already know, a string has a length property that returns the number of characters in that string. Now, we can access a string characters by index, as if it was an array of characters. In addition, we have many different operations like toUpper that returns the same string with all characters converted to uppercase. Another example is the starts with method that returns true if the string starts with the given string. And there are much more methods that we'll see now. So let's go to VS Code to try working with strings. Alright, so now we are in VS Code, and let's see some operations and method of strings. So first let's see how interpolation works. So consider that we have two strings. The first one is name, and the second one is, for example, course. And let's give it a value of C#. Now we want to build a welcome string containing these two strings, name and course. So if we are going to use concatenation, we can do it like this. Hello. Now I need to add a space here. Name. All right. Welcome. To the course. Okay. First, let's print it. All right, let's make sure that it's actually printed correctly. Hello, Eugene. Welcome to the C# course. Yes, as you can see, it's printed correctly, but also you see that it's very inconvenient to write it this way. And as we already said, very inefficient. So let's do it using interpolation. All right. Welcome to. And now, before the string, I'm adding a $sign. And now I can add curly braces inside the string that will be placeholders. All right, so this time I'm going to write it like this. Hello. And inside curly braces, I'll add name. Welcome to the course. All right. And this time let's print welcome to just to make sure it's printed correctly. And again, it's printed correctly. So we actually got the same result, but this time, as you can see, the string is actually written in a very natural way. So it's really a lot easier to use. All right, now let's see some properties and methods of strings. First, you already saw this property, but I would like to show it again anyway. That's the length property. This time I'm going to use string interpolation in the examples. Name.length. First, as you can see, we can use an expression inside the curly braces. It doesn't have to be just a variable. And as you can see, we are going to print the length of name. All right, so as you can see, length 6 is printed. Name has 6 characters. All right. The next thing that I want to show you is that we can access the elements of a string by index. So let's do it like this. Name at 2. And now let's print the value in name at 2. All right. So as you can see, name at index 2 is G, which is correct. So we basically can access a string as if it was an array. All right. Now let's see another method of a string, which is toUpper. And toUpper basically just returns the same string, but with all letters uppercase. So uppercase, and here I'm going to just type name toUpper. All right, let's see. Okay, as you can see, Eugene with all uppercase letters is printed. All right. Now, a little different method will be the starts with. Starts with, in contrast to toUpper, returns a boolean, and it returns true if the string actually starts with the given string. All right. Let's print starts with, and for example, okay. Let's run this. And as you can see, the result is true because it actually starts with EUG. All right. Now I'm going to show you something a little bit more complex, but it's not difficult. Okay, so let's create an array of strings. All right. Okay. Now consider that we want to combine these strings in this array into a single string. So there is a special method called join that takes an array and joins its strings into a single string. And we do it like this. Joined string. And now I'm going to type string, which means it's the type string. Actually, it's not any of the strings that we were using. So this method actually runs on the type string. We'll learn about methods that run on type and not on objects when we learn about object-oriented programming. But for now, just remember that it works this way. Okay, so string, and now we use join. Join actually gets two parameters. The first one is the separator, is how to separate the strings inside this single string. So let's separate them using a space. And we are going to give it the words array to join. Now, once done, we are going to print the joined string variable. All right, let's run it. Okay, as you can see, Programming Fundamentals with C# is printed. All right. Now let's try to do the opposite. This time, let's take this join string and convert it into an array of separate strings. And we can do it like this. I'm just defining an array of strings variable, and now I'm going to run a method on the join string variable. Join string. This time I'm going to use the split method. Split actually splits the string using the specified separator, delimiter. So we can tell it to split again by space. So after this command, the R variable will contain 4 elements, while the elements will be actually every word from the joined string variable. All right, now let's print every element in the R variable. Yeah, let's print it on separate lines. So we'll see the difference between this one and the joined string. All right, now every element of R will be printed in a separate line. Okay, so let's see how it's working. All right, of course, I need to give it a RR at I. Let's run it again. Yeah, and as you can see, Programming Fundamentals with C# is printed on separate lines because ARR has these 4 words actually in separate elements. now let's do an exercise. So I'm going to comment everything here. And the exercise is the following. Let's take a string and check if this string is a palindrome. A palindrome is a string that reads the same from both sides, from left to right and from right to left. For example, this string is a palindrome because it reads the same in both directions. All right. Now, how can we do it? What we need to do is actually to walk over the string until the center of the string, and for every element make sure that it has the same value as its mirrored element from the end. All right, so let's do it like this. Pay attention that we don't need to go until the end. We need to go until the center of the string. So we can divide this by 2. All right. And now let's do the following. Let's define a Boolean palindrome equals no, we'll do it the opposite. We'll say that it's true. And if we find at least one letter that does not equal to its mirrored letter from the end, we'll say that palindrome is false. Okay. If str at I does not equal to str at str length minus I, and I think we need to do minus I minus 1, because if we look at this, str at 0 is A, but length, since length is 4, length 4 minus 0 will be 4, which is out of the string. So we need always to remove 1. Okay. So if they are the same, not the same, then palindrome equals false. And since it's already false, we don't need to continue with the for loop, so we can simply break at this point. All right, and now let's just print the value of palindrome. Okay. And then, all right. Let's see. All right, so as you can see, we got the result true, which is correct. Now let's try another input. For example, let's add, I don't know, a letter somewhere here. For example, let's add a C here and let's see. All right, this time, as you can see, the result is false. Because if we look at this B, it's not the same as C here. But if we move this C to the center, it should work. Yeah, because it still reads the same in both directions. Now consider that we have a task to count the amount of words in a sentence. So how can we do it? Of course, we can walk over the string and actually count the words. But there is a simpler way. So let's comment this. And now let's take, all right, let's write it. String str and then programming fundamentals with C#. And now, how can we count the number of words in this sentence? So we actually could use a for loop and try to find where the words start and end. But there is a much simpler way. Since we already know that we have a method of split, we can simply do the following. String array is str split, and we are going to split by space, which will give us separate words. And now the only thing we need to do is to print the length of the array. Okay, let's see. All right, and as you can see, the number of words is actually 4. All right, in this lesson, we learned how to work with the string data type. Thank you for watching and see you in the next lesson.